Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Fall Convocation as we open our 2013-2014 academic year. Welcome to you all, faculty, students, staff. We look forward to a very productive year as we move into the opening of the academic year. I want to start by saying that we're glad to have with us some students, but we're very disappointed that we don't have our first-year students fully represented, although there may be some first-year students in the house. Are you there, first-year students? Anyone? Could you just stand and let us see you? Oh, all the way back there. Okay, good. Well, we know there are way more of you. There are probably almost 1,000 of you, first-year and transfer students who are coming to York for the first time. And I had a little message for you, and I'm going to deliver it anyway. And maybe you will make sure that others get it. But of course, what I will also do is I'll be sure to put it on the website so they can read it. So this is a new tradition that we've been trying here at York to include first-year students at Convocation, to get them connected to the college in this way, and to give them a very brief message. And so symbolically, the three of you who are in the room represent the class of 2017. And I want to say that we're glad that you are here. I know that you will find here an opportunity to begin to shape your future. Bono, the lead singer of the rock band U2 and a human rights activist, is known to have said, "The world is more malleable than you think. You just have to hammer it into shape." So class of 2017, represented by the three people here, it is up to you to begin to hammer out your future starting today. You will hammer out your future in the classroom, where you will benefit from the intellectual challenges presented by our 200 or so full-time faculty and by our almost 200 part-time faculty, all educated not only here in New York State, but across this nation, indeed across the world. You, class of 2017, next week, you should hammer out your future as you work in our science labs, in our library, our technology labs, our smart classroom, our state-of-the-art journalism school, our sim lab, designed especially for nursing students. No later than mid-semester or so, you should be hammering out your future by seeking advice in our career services office, in our counseling office, in our student development, advisement, and in our women's center, as you begin to discover the services that are available to you. And by next spring, certainly you should be hammering out your future as you engage in co-curricular activities, whether in student government, in athletics, in one of the existing 40 clubs, from biotechnology to Cardinal Stepper to entrepreneurship to Latin Caucus to women in aviation. And if there's not a club that you like, please tell the others, you three who are here and student government, that they can create their own club. And there are any number of faculty advisors available to help them. So class of 2017, as Bono said, start hammering, start shaping your future. At this time, it is my great and fond delight to welcome back our faculty colleagues, those seated in the center here and some on the stage. Many of our faculty colleagues are returning to York after what I hope was a restful and productive summer. Some of you, of course, have been here throughout the summer, helping us to prepare for this academic year and also working in summer school, not only with our own students, but with many of our high school students as well. I trust that you have eked out some time to pursue your research, your scholarship, creative production, and some relaxation. I had a chance to talk with a few people just as we were gathering, and at least one faculty member that I spoke with spent a whole month in Maine doing some vocal work. You'll know who that is. He'll certainly know who that is. And also trying out some new plays. I know that there are others who have spent time traveling to Moldova, to China, to United Kingdom, to Haiti. Others have been in the labs, the tunnels, the libraries, the waterways right here in New York City. And some of you have led teams of students as you have conducted your work. All of this work, intellectual, spiritual, creative, will show its results as you work with our students in the academic year 2013-2014. Just want to mention two people who have had great results of their intellectual work. Professor Mary Jo Kronecker recently co-authored an article published in Issues in Accounting Education titled The Evolution of Fraud Theory. And Dr. Linda Grasso, who is out on sabbatical, is starting the sabbatical strong by actually having something published as she continues to work on a new project. And that article, You Are No Stranger to Me, Georgia O'Keeffe's fan mail, published by Penn State University, and it is now part of the Yale University collection. I really want to thank the faculty for their ongoing work in doing this kind of creative and research work, because it really enriches the climate and what you do in the classroom. As we start the semester and as we celebrate good things, it is our sad duty as well to note the passing of a great colleague too soon, Dr. Martin Atangana. Dr. Atangana, as many of you know, was a professor in the history department. He held a PhD in history from the University of Sorbonne. His research interests focused on the relationship between West Africa and Europe, with a special emphasis on Franco-Cameroonian relations. Dr. Atangana was also an accomplished musician and guitarist who worked with artists such as Paul Simon, Jean-Luc Ponty, Manny Dibango, and Ronald Shannon Jackson. He frequently performed right here in New York with his own band, African Blue Note, and his solo albums included Oyenga Fam and Motsango. Here at York, not only was Dr. Atangana's scholarship noted, but he was just emerging in his own right as chair of the History and Philosophy Department when he died recently. There's an announcement out with regard to the funeral arrangements, but I did want us to take a moment to remember him this morning and to express our condolences to his family. Indeed, he will greatly be missed by the York College family. I do want to acknowledge the transition in the Office of Academic Affairs. Everyone knows, of course, that Provost Griffith has left us to take a presidential position in Georgia, and I'm delighted at the seamless transition that has occurred over the summer with Provost Paniotis Meletius and Dean Donna Chirico serving as leaders in academic affairs. I know that you join me in wishing them well and also acknowledging the work of Provost Griffith during these last 6 years. I just want to do a round of applause for the new leadership and as well for the work of Provost Griffith. This year I'm going to focus on my talk on not all of the accomplishments of last year or all of the goals of next year. I'm going to ask you to engage with me on that at a different time. And while our goals and our report are not up yet on the website, they should be up in the next day or two. There are just a few tweaks that need to be done. And I do ask that you take a look at them and in your own circles, in your own departments, in your own units, engage in conversations about the goals and targets and the performance based on last year. But I want to talk briefly about the thing that I'd like us to focus on this year and maybe for a couple of years. And indeed, it's not a new focus, but it's a more emerging focus. As you all know, we established a new strategic plan in 2010, taking us to 2020. And we established a set of values for the institution, 6 altogether. And the one that I wanted to focus on was the value of intentional interactions around our engagement with students, both inside of the classroom and outside of the classroom. And what I know from talking with students as I wander the hallways or as they come to see me during Open Friday, or sometimes even after they've graduated and they may write back to us or participate in alumni surveys, is that very often students express strong appreciation of the kind of work that goes on at York. And I just recently got 2 very nice letters in the midst of registration, which kind of were heartwarming because I know that this is not the best time of year for us because there are so many challenges. And the students said, "It has been a pleasure being a student at York College. Many on your staff have impacted my life with great influence and guidance. During my registration and admission process, your administrative staff was extremely helpful and outgoing towards me. Thank you for having such a wonderful team of staff members at your college that help us to succeed." And I know that sometimes you see some of the other kinds of letters and the other complaints, so I wanted to share this one with you. And it was not a one-off, as they say. I've seen many of these before. And I know that you can find your own examples of students who, whether it's a sports team or whether they've participated in leadership, whether they've traveled to Selma, Alabama to commemorate the anniversary of the voting rights, whether they've studied in Ghana or France, all of these students express deep engagement. But some of the data that we get from our annual reports, specifically the Noel Levitt Survey of Campus Life, presents a very different picture of what students say about some of our services. And that is the one that has been sort of nagging at us for some time and that we've been working at, but we will continue to need to work at, and that's what I'm hoping to engage you with this year. Our students responding to that survey are expressing a lower than average level of satisfaction with administrative services, with technology, and with quote unquote campus climate. For us, this is very disturbing because we're still trying, even though we have been growing over the years, to create what we consider that small campus feel, where somebody knows your name. Because this is something that our students today and our students 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, they testify to the fact that some faculty member, some staff member reached out and touched them and extraordinarily changed their lives. And though we're growing, we do want to keep that quality. So as we try to keep that quality, especially on the administrative side, York is going to continue to seek and create responses that will improve the quality of life for students inside and outside of the classroom. Now that we have right-sized our budget, because you've heard me talk about budget over the last couple of years, and I'm not saying much about it this year except to say we ended on a strong note with a reserve as we hoped, and we're hoping not to go back to the bad old days, if you will, of deficits. So now that we have essentially right-sized our budget, we really want to recommit ourselves to hiring the best qualified professors to engage our students, and that is you. We want to strengthen the cohort of full-time faculty, and we've taken a step towards that this year. Provost Meletius will introduce the new faculty in a few minutes. We will continue with our first-year experience. We will engage our student ambassadors. We will work towards improving the quality of life on the campus. Heavens knows, we know the issues around the facilities. We try to work on them. We make a little bit of progress and we seem to regress, but we're putting it front and center to try to maintain facilities in a way that really improves the quality of life. We took a step last year with some help from faculty in going out to bid for a new food service. We hope that that is paying off. And we will continue to work on improving and building smart classrooms as well as other technological changes. But the one new element that we are going to introduce this year, now that we have also rolled out our advisement restructuring, thanks a lot to a couple of people who really led that effort, including Les Raphael, including Dr. Cindy Haller, and including Dean Gibson. We are beginning now to be able to say that we have restructured advisement in a very positive way to integrate it into one place. We are hoping this year to roll out something called the 5 Standards of Student Customer Service, which includes owning a student issue when students come to us, greeting the student promptly, listening with respect as item 3, providing accurate and complete information, and honoring our commitment to respond in a timely fashion. These standards have been developed by a small team, VP Walker Johnson, Dean Thomas Gibson, and Executive Director of Enrollment Michelle Hodge. They engaged the directors and cabinet during the summer, and they will be looking to engage you during the course of the fall or the spring. Should you be interested in being engaged on this level, please contact one of them. Unfortunately for us, you'll only be able to contact 2 of these people, Dr. Geneva Walker Johnson and Mr. Hodge, because over the last few weeks, I have again the sad duty of reporting to you that Dean Gibson, who served us for about 4 years in a number of positions in student development, has been offered and he has accepted. To my regret, I did try to see what I could do to keep him, short of chaining him to a desk on campus, but I wasn't able to do that. And so I have to bid a very sort of bittersweet farewell to Dean Gibson, who is taking a position as Associate Vice President for Student Affairs at Ball State University. We'll really miss you, Dean Gibson. We're sorry to see you go, but you've left us a couple of legacies. Certainly I remember, and those who served on strategic plan will remember the phrase intentional interactions. You brought that to the table, and you've left us that legacy that we will try to live up to. And we will also leave the legacy of data-driven studies in student development that you have led us with. And so I do want to say thanks for your service. Sorry you're leaving, but we wish you the very best, Dean Gibson, as you leave the college. A few closing acknowledgments. Many of you know this is the year that was, the things that happened in an interesting year. And I'm not going to go for my top 10 as I usually do, but I am going to acknowledge 5 important accomplishments at York during last year. Many of you were here when Milton Basson was president of York. Some of you will know that he died last August. This year, we were able, with some effort on the part of the family, who pledged a significant gift, pledged and gave a significant gift, we decided that it was a good thing for us at York to remember him by naming this facility in his honor. And so, for the future, this facility will be known as the Milton Basson Performing Arts Center at York College. Thank you. I don't think I have to say much to you because you did the work about the work that you as a faculty did, led by Provost Griffith then, Dean Melatius then, Dr. Chirico as chair, in getting us to the finish line with our pathways implementation. Really want to thank the faculty, the chairs, and the leadership in Office of Academic Affairs for that work. I want to acknowledge an important reaccreditation that took place last year. And it was a reaccreditation. We were delighted when NCATE accredited us in our teacher ed. We were more than delighted when they came back and reaccredited us. And so to Dr. Barron, to the department, the faculty in the department, and to the dean, my congratulations and thanks. Dr. Barron. Number 4, we've really suffered through this, and we're probably not finished suffering yet. CUNY first. Well, change is good, they say. Not sure how good this was, but it's occurred, and painful in many ways, difficult in some, not only for us as a staff, as an administration, as a faculty, but certainly for students as well. But I do want to acknowledge some of the leadership who helped us through. VP Thomas, Mr. Hodge, before him, Larice Miller, Ms. Davidson, Ms. Michaels, Mr. Ty and company, Ms. Williamson, and many others. We especially appreciate the work you did during the enrollment period because there were many, many challenges. So I really want to thank that team. And we don't want to forget, this is September. Last October, we were hit by Superstorm Sandy. Seems distant, doesn't it? But as you know, New York was disrupted, lives were lost, people displaced, and we as a college served as a shelter for some 2,000 people over a period of 10 to 14 days. And there were many people who really conducted themselves in an extraordinary way. Quite frankly, the whole college community really rallied around that concern. And even though, yes, we wanted to get back into the business of education, we also showed a spirit of generosity to those who were less fortunate than us, and we extended ourselves. And that really was the whole college community here at York, but with some outstanding folks who were very much on the front lines throughout this effort, who didn't get a lot of sleep, and who carried the ball for us so that we could, in fact, be open-hearted. And they include, again, VP Thomas, Lieutenant Forte, people like Gene Phelps, Professor Sharon Faust, Harry Velazquez, Joe Cufredo and his BNG team, Richard Slowski, and many, many others. We really don't want to forget where we were back in October of last year, and I just want to acknowledge the work of the whole college community, but some of those people as well. So as I said before, I do ask you to take a look at our full report and also to take a look at our goals and targets. I wish us all a very, very good year. Let's do great things this year in the York College community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am really pleased to have the opportunity, of course, to welcome our entering first-year class. Modest in size, though they may be in this room, but we have quite a few, and I am thrilled that they are here and new members of our community. I also am pleased to introduce 3 new professional staff members in the Division of Student Development. Dr. Jae Young Choi earned her PhD from the University of Akron in Ohio and a master's from Case Western University in counseling as well. When we asked her the question about what caused her to think about becoming a counseling psychologist, she said it came from her own immigrant experience in a country that she was not familiar with and was vastly different than her own. And she became intrigued with how people really learned how to navigate in a very complex maze in a different new world. Dr. Sidney Smith is also in the Department of Counseling. He was an undergraduate at St. Francis College, majoring in psychology and a minor in sociology. He has an earned doctorate in counseling psychology from Columbia University. In addition to Dr. Smith's responsibility as a counselor in the counseling service, he is also the director of our Veterans Services. When we asked him why he became a psychological counselor, he said as a first year, when he took introductory psychology, and I quote, "I was hooked." He said he became fascinated by the mind and its inner workings. Our third new staff member is Ms. Cynthia Clendenin. She joined the division this summer as well as the director of the York College Child and Family Center. Ms. Clendenin's professional career has spanned over 20 years in education and has a master's in elementary and early childhood education from Queens College. She came to us most recently from Queensborough Community College Head Start program. Please join me in welcoming these new staff members to York College and the division. If you're,
Are you here, Dr. Smith?
there he is back there. Oh,
You're
there.
in the back.
Please,
Why
oh
is
my
it so
goodness.
bad? Okay.
A part of a commitment in being a new student is you've made a commitment now to move ahead with your educational goals. Part of that does include the first year pledge. So on behalf of your class, those of you who are present in the room as first years, would you please rise and we can recite the pledge together? Don't be shy. Oh, here's a person here. Oh, okay. And student government, would you rise on behalf of the class? If you look in your program, the pledge is on the page. And we can read this together. I pledge to sincerely commit myself to 5 principles. I will give my best effort to my coursework and seek assistance when appropriate. I will uphold the highest ethical standards in everything that I do. I will pursue opportunities for personal development and civic engagement. I will actively participate in college programs and services. I will be devoted and responsible citizen of your college, of my community, my nation, and the world. Please do commit yourself and say, I do. Thank you very much.
We'll have greetings from our student government leader, Mr. Sheikh Amin.
Thank you, President Marcia V. Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome back to all returning students and all faculty and the class of 2017. We are so excited to have each and every one of you here today. I would like to use this opportunity to pass on a few of the insights about the Student Government Association this year. We are also experiencing a new beginning, a revived vision, a new focus on building collaboration and community among all members and organizations within your college. I sincerely believe the most effective method to represent and serve students is through practical service and committed leadership. We can certainly maintain the end goals of modifying certain college policies and practices for the benefit of all students. But as we work toward those goals, we must take small steps at a time and initiate simple improvement along the way to benefit all students immediately. Indeed, our goal in the student government this year is nothing less than to create a living example of student leaders. So now it's my honor to acknowledge the members who are working day and night with me, who are also working behind the scene, and who is working actively in the front line. I call them the Your College Pioneers, the living legacy. They are the frontiers. So, Student Government Association members, 2013, 2014, can you please stand up? They are the living example of today's leaders all across CUNY, and they are working really hard to make our York as our home. So our motto this year is Our York, Our Pride. And our slogan is Dare to Reach Farther. With the help of our pioneers, there are few initiatives of student government, what we stand for this year. We want the student more involvement. We want to rename this subway stop at Jamaica Center E and J train. We want to rename to last stop, Your College, Jamaica Center. So we also want to improve the Wi-Fi throughout the campus, the better cafeteria food pricing, some of the longer library hours, and we have a strategic plan about the student bill of rights, a scholarship, and York College marketing plan, and York Sports Fest. As just a reminder to all the new students, I would like to work with them shoulder to shoulder. And please keep in mind, we have a lot of opportunity here at your college. Please take advantage of all the opportunities and always allow yourself to experience the change. Change is good. Our president just said it. And don't sweat the small stuff. Thank you and welcome everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see you back from the summer. It feels like we never left. Now, it is my pleasure to update you on the changes in the academic leadership of the college. I would like to congratulate the newly elected chair of the Department of Biology, Dr. Margaret McNeil, who is succeeding Dr. Gerard McNeil, who was the founding chair. The same thing for the Department of Chemistry. Dr. Ruel de Samero was elected chair, succeeding Dr. Johnson, who was also the founding chair. Dr. Gila Ager has been re-elected to continue her tenure and leadership in the Department of Social Sciences. Dr. Fabiola Salek as well was re-elected to continue her service and leadership in the Foreign Languages, ESL and Humanities Department. Dr. Linda Michelle Baron, appreciated for leading her department to the NK3 accreditation. She was re-elected chair of the Department of Teacher Education. Dr. David Ajolachogu was re-elected chair of the Health and Physical Education Department, continuing his service and leadership in that area. Dr. Francisco Viegas was appointed the acting chair of the Department of Behavioral Sciences, replacing Dr. Chirico, who is serving now as acting Dean of Arts and Sciences, and Dr. Cynthia Haller has been appointed acting chair of English, serving in the place of Dr. Grasso, who is on sabbatical. Dr. Howard Radenberg was appointed acting chair of History and Philosophy, succeeding Dr. Martin Atangana, and Dr. Robert Duncan was appointed director of the Office of Undergraduate Research, replacing the founding director, Dr. Rishi Nath. It is also my pleasure to welcome and to congratulate on their appointments the new full-time faculty members that started their service this term. I would like to invite them to stand while they hear their names so they get known to the community. I will start with the substitute assistant professors, Dr. Maria Pia Di Bonaventura in biology and Abiola Oladipo in biology as well. Dr. Harry Bitsikalis from Behavioral Sciences, Nathan Austin in English, substitute clinical professor Ann Mara in Teacher Education, and substitute lecturer Crystal George Moses in Social Sciences. We are also welcoming assistant professors Kanbok Lee in Business and Economics, Daniele Musumeci in Chemistry, and George Lam in Performing and Fine Arts. Associate professors Bernadetta Micucci, Helene Di Palma, Valerie Taylor Haslip in Health Professions, and Mavis Green in Business and Economics. Professor Howard Johnson in Teacher Education, and distinguished lecturer Margaret Vendries in Performing and Fine Arts, and clinical professors Elise Henry in Occupational Therapy and Kimberly Glickman in Social Sciences. Thank you very much.
I still want to call Provost Melitius Dean Melitius. It's so much easier. but I'll get used to it. So it is my delight now to ask Professor, oh no, I'm sorry, it's the music, isn't it? Musical interlude, isn't it? Is Jonathan here? He is? Oh, Jonathan, please come in, I'm sorry. We must have our musical interlude before we invite Professor Sonia Rivera Valdez to the podium.
I've asked one of our very talented students, Mr. Stephen Pink, to join me for this interlude.
I was only 17 when the feeling came to me. Felt the light surrounding me, subway beats under my feet. I could feel its energy of every block and city street. It's New York City, oh yeah. And every person I would meet wants the world in just a peek, teaching me to hustle hard, always finish what I start. I can feel its energy constantly transforming me. And now you're in New York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of. There's nothing you can't do. And now you're in New York. These streets will make you feel brand new. Big lights will inspire you. And now you're in New York, New York, New York. Was it Broadway on my mind that made me see my name in lights? Or was it Lenox Avenue that said be careful what you do? Or maybe it was just a cold that made you spring of my love gold and make New York City, yeah. Or maybe it was that parade, or the parties through the day, or the parties through the night that don't get out until the light. Oh, I know it's bad and good, but it feels the way it should. And now you're in New York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of. There's nothing you can't do. And now you're in New York. These streets will make you feel brand new. Big lights will inspire you. Now you're in New York, New York, New York, yeah.
So as you know, this is one of our newer traditions, the Convocation Professor. And our first was Professor Ruttenberg. Our second was Professor Hux. Our third, Professor Rivera Valdez. And now our fourth, Professor Coleman. And he will get a formal introduction from Professor Rivera Valdez, but now we will do the hooding. So I invite both Professor Rivera Valdez and Coleman to come towards the podium for the hooding.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Keizs, former Provost Griffith, Provost Melletier, and the faculty committee for choosing Professor Charles Coleman as faculty convocation speaker for fall 2013. It would be an honor for me to introduce any of my colleagues who had been selected. But in introducing Professor Coleman, I feel particularly pleased. Professor Coleman has been in the Department of English at your college since 1986. And for almost 3 decades, he has sustained as a priority to advocate for a broader understanding of the African American vernacular English and the Caribbean Creole languages. He has consistently done this work in his classes, as well as the innumerable papers he has written about the subject and conferences in which he has participated. In my opinion, his inclusive and unprejudiced approach to language is the wisest way to address this subject anywhere. But in our college, it is fundamental if we like to raise in many of our students self-respect and confidence in their verbal language abilities. Knowing Dr. Charles Coleman's professional trajectory, it is no surprise that his students speak to him with the highest respect as an excellent professor and human being. Now he's retiring from being a full-time professor. But whatever he decides to do in the many years of life we wish him, he will spend them in the same inspiring and altruistic way he has spent all these years among us. As many of you know, last year I delivered the convocation speech. Well, when the activity finished, I encountered Professor Coleman in a hall of this building. He approached me, and looking at my eyes, he said, "It is an honor for your college to have you here." I felt flattered, especially because the compliment was coming from him. But at that moment, I did not know that 1 year later, I would be doing for him what I am doing now. Today, I feel privileged for having the pleasure to introduce to you Professor Charles Coleman. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Keizs, Assistant Provost Hinkie, Provost Melatius, and former Provost Griffith. Thank you, last year's convocation speaker, Professor Sonia Rivera Valdez, and members of the committee for privileging me with being the faculty speaker for today's convocation. I will return shortly to thanking some other people. My talk is titled, "I Am a Teacher." I would like to begin with two quotes, one from one of my favorite books, Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, and the other from an Amy Goodman Democracy Now! Interview with South American economist Manfred Max Neef. From Invisible Man. I am an invisible man. No, I am not a spook like those who haunted Edgar Allan Poe, nor am I one of your Hollywood movie ectoplasms. I am a man of substance, of flesh and bone, fiber and liquids, and I might even be said to possess a mind. I am invisible, understand, simply because people refuse to see me. Like the bodiless heads you see sometimes in circus sideshows, it is as though I have been surrounded by mirrors of hard, distorting glass. When they approach me, they see only my surroundings, themselves, or figments of their imagination. Indeed, everything and anything except me. Nor is my invisibility exactly a matter of biochemical accident to my epidermis. That invisibility to which I refer occurs because of a peculiar disposition of the eyes of those with whom I come in contact. A matter of the construction of their inner eyes, those eyes with which they look through their physical eyes upon reality. I am not complaining, nor am I protesting either. It is sometimes advantageous to be unseen, although it is most often rather wearing on the nerves. My second quote, or let me go explain the first. The first part of the Ellington quote is applicable to Trayvon Martin's situations in our nation. We have evolved a racialized cultural consciousness that frames how people are seen and evaluated based on skin color, black, brown, red, yellow, white, or based on ethnicity, or based on that false concept we have constructed called race. But I am equally taken by the part of Ellison's quote that reads, "It is sometimes advantageous to be unseen." A kind of anonymity has resulted from my invisibility that has provided me a space, a distance from which to observe, to contemplate, and even to appreciate. The second quote, Manfred Max Neef, a South American economist, said the following in an interview with Amy Goodman. "We have evolved to the point now where we know a lot, but we understand very little." It's a short quote. I would like to repeat it. We have evolved to the point now where we know a lot, but we understand very little. This short but powerful sentence took residence in my mind. I am awed by astronomers, economists, evolutionary biologists, mathematicians, anthropologists, historians, who construct, reconstruct, deconstruct information and knowledge about life, about the cosmos, and about human behavior. Yet I am aware that as a species, we find it extremely difficult, individually or collectively, to engage in consistent, intelligent behavior if a measure of intelligent behavior is respecting each other and the planet. More than 40 years ago, I made an intelligent decision. I decided to become a teacher. Becoming a teacher added an occupational dimension to my invisibility. Teachers are often disrespected and ignored. But it has also allowed me the space and distance to appreciate that teachers are people who fall in love with learning and who want to share that love with other learners in the classroom and beyond. And being in love with learning also means that no matter how much I think I know, one of my ongoing quests will always be for understanding. So my talk today is about my 40-plus year sojourn as a teacher. And here I must thank some more people. I thank the students represented by an elderly Korean man who took a remedial reading class with me many years ago. I asked him to come to the board and write a short sentence in Korean and then explain it to the class. He was so proud to be in a college class and to have been called on to share some of what he knew. I thank the students represented by the mother from the 40s projects behind your college. Her young sons were applying to a gifted elementary school affiliated with Queens College. She knew to tell her sons that if they were put in a waiting room with games, toys, and books, they should get a book and read. I am grateful to the current and former York students represented by those who have stopped by my office and said things like, I am returning to college after having stopped out for several years. I came to see you because I remember you said I was a good writer. Some of these students work in our writing center or other offices in the college. I'm grateful to my colleagues here at York. We don't always agree politically or philosophically, as demonstrated by our reactions to the Pathways Initiative. But your college students are multicultural. Many are the first generation in their families to attend college, and the majority of our students are women. I appreciate that I work with colleagues who are sensitive, caring, and whose love of learning permeates the classroom and in many cases extends beyond the classroom for our students. I have been privileged to teach and to hone my craft at different levels: junior high school, college, and in a master's level teacher education program. In my more than 26 years at York, I have enjoyed sharing my love of learning with students in classes on African American literature, African American studies, African American and Jewish American fiction, class, race, and gender in popular literature, history of the English language, intro and advanced grammar, sociolinguistics, and senior seminars such as the one I taught on the history of writing. But freshman level courses are at the heart of what I appreciate about my York College teaching experience. English 125, Introduction to College Writing, English 200, Introduction to Literature, and a course that I am proud to have developed, Cultural Diversity 101, Introduction to Cultural Studies. So I would like to share then some of the things students have written in some of these classes, and then I will end with something that I wrote. One of the kinds of middle stakes writing we do in Cultural Diversity 101 and in other classes is called the response log. The following is taken from a young man's Cultural Diversity 101 response log to a Jane Elliott documentary titled A Class Divided, The Brown-Eyed, Blue-Eyed Experiment. One note, Response writing students are not held strictly accountable for grammar or spelling, so I will not change errors here, except in cases where they might interfere with comprehension. After watching the video in which this Iowa teacher separated her children based on eye color and then discriminated against them, the young man wrote the following. I was surprised when I saw the video. The idea that Jane Elliott used was very interesting. The white children in her classroom were able to see what it was like to be segregated and treated differently because of a physical feature. One day she treated the blue-eyed children better than the brown-eyed children. And then the next day she treated the brown-eyed children better than the blue-eyed children. Her experiment seemed to be a success. The children learned from it. When the children were all grown up, she had a reunion with them. After asking them questions about their experience as children through the experiment, I find that they learned from it. They were not prejudiced against black people or anyone. Jane Elliott used the experiment with adults of different races, and the results were the same. One comment that a woman made was that it is easy to feel segregated once, but unless you are a person who feels it every day, then you don't really know how it feels to be segregated against. I often ask students to end with a question in their response logs for further class discussion, and this student ends with, how many times has Jane Elliott used her experiment, and were they all successful? Next, let's go to an English 125 class, where a student is doing a response log to Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, like the ones that oppressed the Negro population. This was the reason why Mr. King saw it right to have a non-violent campaign to fight for equal rights for all men regardless of race. At the end of the letter, Mr. King told the clergymen that he hoped that they would be able to see and understand what he was trying to prove. Mr. King was a very bold man who would fight for what was right, no matter what it cost him, so that all men would be equal. Not so many men like him would stand up for what is right and fight for justice. It is impressive to know that a man like him did something that cost his life just to have justice for all. In a class like this, I ask students to include a short quote in order to later on learn to weave that into a more formal text. So this student included the following quote. Law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and that when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. Now, I said I don't correct errors, but I also make note and reward students when they use fairly sophisticated language. So earlier in this response log, the student wrote, Mr. King told the clergyman that he could not afford to not be concerned. There's a double negative. That's perfectly all right, and it's very sophisticated language. Next is a response log from a sociolinguistics class. The student writes, when I saw sociolinguistics listed in the college bulletin, I knew right away that it was something I had to take. As an English major, I do plenty of reading and writing, but I know I probably don't pay as much attention to language as I should. By that I mean, I've never really went out of my way to find out how I learned to speak, read, or write. I am concerned about how I speak in public and how that reflects on me, and I believe that taking this course will have effects I have not even thought about. In Pinker's chapter, this is Steven Pinker from the book The Language Instinct. In Pinker's chapter, Chatterboxes, it was very interesting to know that no mute tribe has ever been discovered. It is so interesting to me because it just shows that everyone has some way to communicate. As he said in his first chapter, communication is key. His story about the tribe of people who encountered the Europeans and saw them defecating was something both funny and true. The Europeans may have looked, acted, and spoke differently, but they were just the same because as They said their feces smells bad just like ours. After reading both chapters of Pinker's book, it is so true that we must leave our assumptions at the door before entering the classroom. We cannot judge people by the way they speak. During this course, I would like to learn more about different English vernaculars and changing language registers. As it was stated in class, no form of English is unintelligent. We must just know when to use certain forms. As I wind down, I'll read something that I wrote in an English 125 class. We do something called free writing, the purpose of which is to just develop fluency in written expression. It's always been my practice when I have students writing in class to write with them. So I began the following during one of our free writing sessions. Sometimes I imagine Earth is alive. She's a female who was made pregnant over 4.5 billion years ago by a visiting meteorite, or by a star, or perhaps by another planet. Since then, she has continuously spawned children. So every time a species goes extinct, she has lost another child. Her first children, however, were not the animals or even proto-animals and insects that populate the earth today. Her firstborn were oceans, mountains, lakes, rivers, ponds, and land masses with ice caps, forests, deserts, and plains. Like all mothers, she grieves terribly when she loses one of her children, whether it's a dinosaur, a dried up riverbed, or a leaf. And she grieves her own cursed blessing, blessed that it seems she will always be here spawning, nurturing, but cursed because she has to watch her offspring perish. Fairly recently, she brought forth a new offspring, designed to think, feel, and even do something she had no need to do, talk. Her new offspring had a very long gestation period and required nurturing through childhood much longer than some of their cousins. She saw this as a good thing because their slow development would help them understand their connectedness to and mutual reliance on their brothers, sisters, and cousins. And because they could use their ability to think, feel, and talk to help their mother, the planet, and to help and nurture one another. However, after what seemed like a very long infancy and childhood, this new offspring developed into adolescence faster than perhaps even she had anticipated. They became adolescents with more power and access to stuff than they were mature enough to handle, stultifying their movement toward adulthood. They began to engage in folly, such as believing they could control and manipulate something as immutable and beyond understanding as time. They even began to think that just because they could talk, that they actually had something to say. And Mother Earth is sensing something that may be new even to her. She has had some kind of physical response to the actions of her newest offspring. She keeps sneezing, her stomach growls, her hair falls out, her nails thin. She has diarrhea, and is there blood in her stool? But her children, the new offspring, don't seem to notice. In their pursuit to collect something they refer to as money, and to maintain something they refer to as power, they mistake her phlegm, snot, bowels as something they call natural resources to be fought over and controlled. Likewise, they declare the filings from her thinning fingernails and remnants from her thinning hair to be rare, priceless minerals. Even her sneezes and stomach growls become what they refer to as natural disasters. And these disasters become part of some winners-losers game they are fond of playing. They not only seem to believe that there is some significant difference in origin and in purpose between what they call each other, Japanese, Haitian, Chilean, Mexican, Luo, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, black, white, but they also seem unaware that they have other brothers, sisters, and cousins at all. Let me close by thanking a few more people. This year I transitioned from teaching as a teacher to a thing called retirement. But I am not retiring from what motivated me to become a teacher in the first place. My love of learning, my need to share learning with others, and my quest for understanding are organic parts of who I am. So let me thank Charlene, my wife for 40 years, who transitioned to the ancestors 5 years ago. On a few occasions, Charlene taught children in her second grade class whose parents were in one of my college classes. Thank you, Tori and Kisa, our son and daughter, and the beautiful grandchildren that I now have the privilege of spoiling. And finally, I am thankful for being blessed with the love and friendship of some very special people in today's audience. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Professor Coleman, for delivering I Am a Teacher. And as you were getting into the heart of your delivery, some additional students came in. And I do hope that they were able to tune in and get the essence of your presentation. And I do invite them as well, because it has been published for us. So students who came in were really delighted to see you. And we do ask that before you leave today, that you do pick up a copy of I Am a Teacher, the presentation that was made today by our convocation professor. A round of applause again, please, ladies and gentlemen, for this. And I do want to just acknowledge the students who came in, those who are sitting towards the back. You were trying to get in earlier, I guess, and somehow or other you weren't allowed in. So please, would you stand? We just want to see you and acknowledge you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You'll be hearing from me. We will get something out to you. And thank you for joining us at this convocation setting. We just have a little bit more to do before we do alma mater, and the students will get to learn that. It's my delight to present a few presidential awards. Some of the candidates are here and some are not. So if I could get the materials, they're right here. I'd like to ask, is Dr. Kelly Joseph Baker in the house? Yes, she is. Ah, good. I didn't see you. I was sort of looking. Help me out.
Yeah, right in order.
Okay. Dr. Kelly Baker Joseph for Associate Professor English for scholarship this year. She is continuing to write articles and papers and reviews in her field. Come on up. Of expertise, which is World Anglophone literature with an emphasis on Caribbean literature. Stand here. Bask in it for a little bit. And she has something coming out, a book coming out soon in 2013, October. Disturbers of the Peace, Representations of Insanity in Anglophone Caribbean Literature. It's scheduled for publication in October 2013 by the University of Virginia Press. She's a recipient of a number of PSC awards and fellowships, including her postdoctoral fellowship at the Center for Africana Studies at Johns Hopkins. For her continuing scholarship here at York, we want to honor her. Congratulations. A little bit of a something here and a little bit of a something here. I think they're all the same. Congratulations. So the next is a series of presidential awards for service. I do ask Ms. Joanne Fellows to come forward. Everybody loves Joanne, that's right. And we really don't have to say very much about her. That's right. Miss Joanne Fellows, formerly Miss Joanne Dempson, please come forward. The Registrar's Office and beyond. We are so delighted to have you as a member of our staff, and you carry that on nicely and quietly and tenaciously. And Joanne, we're just delighted for all the good work that you have done here at your college. So we want to honor you with a And then we'd like to honor Dr. Naz Kandaker, for many years of service in the SEMA program. How many hundreds of students have been touched by him who are K through 12? And then, of course, he's been a phenomenal person in terms of working with student clubs and student organizations. And most recently, I'm told, he was very instrumental in developing a conference in China, in Chengdu in China, for the I'm going to get this wrong. Geological Society of America. And then he created a blog that has been very, very attractive to both students and colleagues. For his service here at York, let's honor him. Thank you, Naz. Great to see you again, of course. And then we have, I hope we have some of the other folks. I know Miss Tracy Branch is out. Did she have her baby yet, or is she still waiting? She did? What did she have? Oh, nobody knows. a baby, right? But she's been such a stalwart in Sikh. She is a steady, wonderful young woman. She's done a lot of good work in our Sikh program, but in addition to that, she has also worked in service to students. So Miss Tracy Branch, if she's not, I think Dr. Jordan, Director of Sikh, is going to accept this on her behalf. Dr. Jordan, please give our very best. She had a baby girl, is what she had. Very good. We wish her the best. We have something else for her, too. Oh, can't do two. Sergeant Martinez, are you here? Sergeant Martinez, many of you may have noticed, or you may not, Lieutenant Forte has been away for 3 months in a special program. What is it, with the FBI? The what? FBI training. Ooh, I'm going to be really nervous when he comes back. Don't tell him I said that. But Sergeant Martinez, many of you know very well. He's been the coordinator of our SAFE team. He's done a lot of training. He's provided leadership during these last 3 months in the absence of Lieutenant Forte. And of course, he was also on the front lines during Superstorm Sandy. So we want to thank you very much. Thank you again. Miss Becky Zhang and Miss Shiliang Wang, are you in the audience? We want you to come up together. You're a team, as it were. So we'd like you to come up together. You know, as I said in my opening remarks, sometimes we get some of the unpleasant remarks from students and others around some of the services. So it's always very nice to get recognition and acknowledgement, especially in a difficult area. Some of the areas that we work in, sometimes, you know, you may have to say no to a student, or you may have to say no but, or you may have to say yes but. And these two women have really been able to provide extraordinary service in the business office. And we wanted to recognize them for that. So Ms. Becky Zhang, for exceptional contribution of service to students in the business office. Congratulations. Thank you so much. And Ms. Shiliang Wang, also. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So with that, I believe, so let's just do one more wonderful round of applause for all the awardees. So we've come to the end. Students, don't leave because you get to sing the alma mater in preparation for 2017 when you graduate. So if we could, please, would you stand and sing the alma mater? Then we will recess, and of course, there's a small reception outside.
Hail your college, proud we see. York as a star of the city university. So here we stand to pledge by your name to bring our college glory, honor, fame. From our corners of the world, from our rich diversity, in our common quest for truth, we have formed a family. And though we may be far away, yet our hearts are ever near to the school we hold so dear. Hail your college, proud we see. York as a star of the city university. So here we stand to pledge by your name to bring our college glory, honor, fame. From our corners of the world, from our rich diversity, in our common quest for truth, we have formed a family. And though we may be far away, yet our hearts are ever near to the school we hold so dear. Hail your college, proudly we see. York as a star of the city university. So here we stand to pledge by your name to bring our college glory, honor, fame.
Have a good year, York College.